All right, so now what we're going to move on to, now that we understand what the price level is, now that we have a definition for price level stability or an idea of what price level stability is we want to move on to measuring whether we are achieving price level stability in an economy. And like we said in the last lesson, we have an economic indicator that will help us know whether we are being successful in achieving price level stability in an economy. And that indicator is called the inflation rate. Now, as an inflation rate, as a rate, that means that it's a fraction. But it's a fraction that we turn into a decimal, and then we take that decimal and we turn it into a percentage. Okay? So the inflation rate is generally reported and understood as a percentage. That percentage indicates two things. One, it indicates the increase in price, and it also indicates the loss in value of the money. So we're going to say that the inflation rate represents a percentage increase in prices, and it also represents, depending on how you look at it, the percentage decrease in money value. Okay? So if we have if inflation goes, if the inflation rate for 1 year is 3%, then that means that prices increased by 3%. So anything that cost $1 went up to $1.03. Or another way to think about it is something that cost $100 a year later now costs $103. Similarly, if it was the inflation rate was 3%, then that would indicate a decrease in money value. Another way of thinking about it is that if you had $100 in your pocket, 1 year later, that $100 is actually really only worth $97. Now, what you can't do is you can't do both of them at the same time. You can't make the price go up to $103 and make the money go down to $97 because now you've done 6% effectively, or roughly 6% effectively. So you're either going to think of the inflation rate, depending on the situation, you're either going to think of the inflation rate as an increase in prices or as a decrease in money value. So now, there's something in this definition that might be a little perplexing to you. You might think to yourself, well, what in the world is that? Note, the inflation rate is the economic indicator used to measure price level stability in an economy as a percentage change in what? In the Consumer Price Index, or we call it the CPI. Now, what I need to do now is I need to define Consumer Price Index. What is the Consumer Price Index? So do you remember when I said that the price level in an economy is an abstract concept? So what we can do is we can take this abstract concept of the price level and we can make it concrete with actual numbers. That is the job of the Consumer Price Index. The Consumer Price Index is a concrete number. In fact, it's a list of numbers. It's a list of, we actually in the United States, we have a list of numbers for the Consumer Price Index for every single month, for every single year, going all the way back to the early 1900s. Now, in this class, I only really care that you see all of the annual numbers. You don't have to see all the monthly numbers. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put up on the screen and I'm going to show you the list of all the CPI numbers for every year from 1913 up to 2018. All right, so now you might be wondering, where in the world did all those numbers come from? How did they determine those very specific numbers for each one of those years? Well, let's go ahead and identify a definition of the Consumer Price Index. The Consumer Price Index is the average price of a basket of goods at a particular time in the economy. So what is a basket of goods? What does that mean? Well, think about a grocery basket with wheels. You know, a grocery cart, you know, you go into the grocery store, you get the cart. That's a basket, right? Some people call it a grocery basket. Imagine taking that grocery basket and putting in all those things that we talked about previously with price level. We talked about the pile of stuff, right, that most of the households buy. That's what a basket of goods is. In this basket of goods, we put in a gallon of milk, a dozen eggs. We put in cell phone service. We put in toothpaste. We put in a gallon of gas and all kinds of other things that consumers buy. And then what we do is we add up the whole price of the basket. And we do this throughout the year, and we take the average of all those prices throughout the year, okay? And we have the average price of this basket of goods, and then it's at a particular time for all the years. So at a particular time, 2016. Another one a year later, 2017. And what you're looking at on these numbers, this CPI, is you're looking at the price of the basket of goods, or the average price of this basket of goods. And as you can see, over time, the price of that basket of goods is going up. So I've got right here the same list that you just saw on the screen. And for example, we can look at 1996. And in 1996, the CPI is 156.9. What that basically means, one way of thinking about it, is that the basket of goods costs about $156.90. That's how much a consumer would pay for that basket of goods in 1996. But now, if we look at, let's say, 1999, the CPI is 166.6. And so now that same basket of goods, 3 years later, now costs $166.60. So you can see that same pile of stuff in the United States has gone up by about $10 in this 3 years. Now, what we do then is we take this consumer price index, these numbers all here, and we use them to create a percentage change in the prices of things, and this inflation rate then becomes our economic indicator for price level stability. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you the calculation, the formula for the inflation rate. All right, so there's something that you should understand mathematically, that anytime you want to calculate a percentage change in a number, like let's say you want to know, well, by what percent did my income go up? I got a raise. I know how much I used to make. I know how much I make now. How much did it change by a percentage? Or how much did my rent go up by a percentage? Anytime you want to calculate a percentage change, the basic formula goes like this. Your new number minus your old number divided by your old number. Then turn into a percentage. Because what's going to happen is this new minus old divided by old, that's going to be a decimal, not a percentage. So if it comes out to be, if it comes out to be 0.06, it's not 0.06%. You have to turn 0.06 into a percentage by multiplying by 100, which would then give you 6, and then you can say 6%. Well, actually, this is not equal to 6%. Times 100 gives you 6, and then that 6 becomes 6%. Okay? So anytime you want to do any kind of change in percentage, you're going to do the new number minus the old number divided by the old number. And since the inflation rate is a percentage change in the consumer price index, the way that we're going to identify the inflation rate is we're going to use this new minus old divided by old. So, to calculate the inflation rate, we're going to do, here's how it's going to go. So let's say the inflation rate, and I'm going to put a little n down here, sub n. So inflation rate sub n, where n is a year. Okay, so like it could be like 2007. Okay, so inflation rate, and then we could put a 2007 here. And that would indicate we're trying to calculate the inflation rate for 2007. Here's how you're going to identify calculate the inflation rate for any particular year. You're going to take the CPI number from the table that you have. By the way, I'm going to try and put a link to this in the comments section, or in this class, you can go to wherever this lesson is posted, wherever this video is posted, and there should be a PDF link for this piece of paper with the Consumer Price Index from 1913 up to 2018. Okay, so to get the inflation rate for a year, you're going to take the CPI of that year, so sub n, and you're going to subtract away, now this is the new number, you're going to subtract away the old CPI. You're going to subtract the CPI of n minus 1, the year before. So if we want to know 2007, we're going to get the CPI for 2007. Then we're going to subtract away the CPI from 2006, because 2007 minus 1 is 2006. And then we're going to divide by the CPI from 2006, which would be n minus 1. So it's the most recent CPI minus the year before CPI divided by the previous year CPI. Okay? So now, with this formula, what I'd like to do is I'd like to do an example. We can go ahead and do 2007 because I just mentioned 2007. So if you get this list, or you can go back in the video and you can look at the numbers in there if you can read them. And we're going to get the CPI from 2007. So if we want the inflation rate for 2007, we're going to get the CPI from 2007, which is 207.342. 207.342. Then we're going to subtract away the CPI from 2006, which was 201.6. And then we're going to divide by the old number, 201.6. 201.6. Now, what I like to do first is I like to calculate my numerator. So I'm going to grab a calculator here, and I'm going to do 207.342 minus 201.6, and I get 5.742. So this right here, this is 5.742. And now I can divide 5.742 by 201.6. So 5.742 divided by 201.6, and I get now I'm going to go out to 5 decimal places. 0.02848. There we go. 0.02848. And then here's what I want to do. I only want to report 4 decimal places, but the reason I went out to 5 is I'm going to use this 8 to round this 4. And this 8 is telling this 4 to go up to a 5, right? So now what I have is I have 0.0285. Now this is what I'm going to turn into a percentage. I'm going to multiply by 100 or move the decimal point over 2 places, and I'm going to have 2.85%. And now what we can say is that in 2007, based on the Consumer Price Index, the United States experienced 2.85% inflation. And that means that on average, this basket of goods increased by 2.85%. 2.85%. Prices went up by 2.85%. Now you may say, yeah, but I worked at Chick-fil-A during 2007, and I don't remember the prices going up by 2.85%. In fact, the prices didn't go up at all at Chick-fil-A. Remember, we're not saying very specifically that every single price went up by 2.85%. We're saying in general throughout the economy, the average prices of things went up by 2.85%. And that means that on average, your money became 2.85% less in value. It decreased in value by 2.85%. I think what we need to do now is just a couple more examples of the inflation rate. Okay, I think what I want you to do right now is, why don't you pause the video in just a second and calculate the inflation rate for 1993, and then calculate the inflation rate for 1980. And then unpause, and I'll show you the solutions. Okay, so let's do 1993. So in order to define the inflation rate for 1993, we need the CPI for 1993. And it says in here 1993, 144.5 minus the year before, which was 1992, and that's 140.3 divided by the year before, which is 140.3. And so, if we do 145.5 minus 140.3, we get 4.2. So the numerator is 4.2, and then we're going to divide 4.2 by 140.3, and we get 0.02993. Okay? And the only reason we put the 3 there is to round off the next number. This is saying round down. Now round down means don't change the number. So really what we have is 0.0299. Turn that into a percentage, and we get 2.99%. And so 1993, the inflation rate for 1993 was 2.99%. Okay? Now let's go ahead and do 1980. 1980, we need the CPI from 1980, which was 82.4 minus the CPI from the year before, 1979, that's 72.6 divided by 72.6, the year before, 1979. And so now 82.4 minus 72.6 is 9.8. 9.8. And then we'll divide 9.8 by 72.6. And we get 0.13498. Use that fifth number to round. The 8 is going to round the 9 up to a 10, which effectively becomes a 0, and the 10, the 1 goes on to the 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So really what's happening is it's becoming 0.135. And if we turn that into a percentage, it becomes 13.5%. And so that's crazy. In 1980, the United States experienced 13.5% inflation. That means that if there was something that in January cost $1,000, that by the end of December, it actually cost, so it went from $1,000, and by the end of December, it cost $1,135. The price of it went up by $135. This is a pretty big jump, 13.5%. That is not stable. That is not price level stability. And that's why a lot of people were very unhappy in 1980. We had a lot of inflation, and people in the United States were angry about it. And so we want to make sure that we maintain price level stability. And so now you may say, well, Professor Ryan, what is a good inflation rate? What kind of inflation rate is stable? What are people okay with in general? Well, remember, some people, they don't like any kind of increase in prices at all. They get angry even if after 20 years something, the price of something that's $5 goes up to $5.50, okay? But in general, people in the United States are okay with an inflation rate. We like an inflation rate that is less than or equal to, but basically anything 3% or less we're okay with, okay, or under 3%. We consider an inflation rate under 3% to be stable. At the time of this recording, the Federal Reserve in the United States is targeting 2%. I believe it's about 2% that they're targeting. That's what they would like for the inflation rate to be, okay? And around 2% or less than 3%, all the people in the economy feel like they can plan and predict what's happening to their money, okay? All right, we only have one thing to learn about with price level stability.